Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of you, the people you work with, and the people you do life with. At the time of this recording, I'm offering all of you, yes, my lovely listeners, a free 15-minute communication coaching call. You come with some kind of communication problem, and I give you a solution. My calendar link is in the show notes, so check that out. Ken Rusk is going to join me on the show, and I'm super excited. And the reason why is because I've been working a lot in the construction industry over the past several years. And I will tell you, my level of respect for this industry and the way that they're pouring into the next generation of leaders is unreal. It's so fantastic to see. Now, there's this gap, there's this generational gap, these generations that have built these companies and these blue collar companies that have just thrived in this market, and they're still thriving today. And then you have these younger generations that are coming in and wondering what's in it for them. And the older generations are trying to build trust in the younger generations. And there's this whole thing going on with the generations and the trust and what's going on. Who's going to take over for these companies that have been built and been thriving lately? Well, Ken Rusk is going to talk to us today, not necessarily about the generational thing, but about the idea of entrepreneurial wealth and how can we build that with ourselves and what we're doing, not only if we're building companies, but building cultures of teams inside of those companies. Ken Rusk is a best-selling author. He's an entrepreneur, and he's a motivational speaker who achieved Wall Street Journal bestseller status with Blue Collar Cash during the pandemic. He hosts the podcast Comfort, Peace, and Freedom and empowers individuals through his impactful course, The Path to a Successful Life. And he tells us about that later on in the interview. Ken's unique journey includes appearances on Fox and Friends, Tucker Carlson Tonight, and the America's Newsroom. His insights have been featured on Forbes, USA Today, Fox Business, and more. And without formal higher education, Ken's diverse accomplishments include awards like Top Workplaces in Ohio and numerous Franchise of the Year honors. As founder of Rusk Industries, he collaborates with notable figures and supports charitable organizations. With over 4 decades of experience, Ken continues to inspire through speaking engagements. He's currently working on another book about fostering employee-centric business culture for growth. So you ready to get ready with this interview? I'm ready to get ready. So let's do it now. Here we go, Ken. How you doing, man?
Good, Scott. How are you?
I am good. I don't have too many current blue collar people on my show that have lived the life, that have made it to where you've made it. And I'm excited.
Yeah, let's do it. You know, it is one of those unsung hero type of positions, and the more people know about it, the more they're like, "Hey, why didn't anyone ever tell me about this when I was, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old? Why did I do what I'm doing now?" But yeah, it's good. We should. My whole thing is about exposing, how great that whole side of the industry is, which it's something that needs to be talked about.
It is. And the more I got exposed to it in the past several years, working in the AEC industry, architecture, engineering, and construction, was that, it's this little pride thing about like construction are the people that make the world work. Like, they build the roads and they build the infrastructure and they build the buildings and they build everything that we use every day that we take for granted is because of those industries. And, they are the unsung hero. So I appreciate that.
Well, it's amazing because I think the gravity is something that people aren't really aware of. If you think of 167 million people as fully employed in the United States today, I looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics when I wrote Blue Collar Cash, and I found that 77 million people still do something with their hands today. I mean, when you put your feet on the floor to get out of your bed, by the time you hit the office or church or school or wherever you're going, you're crossing 10,000 jobs that are still viable today in the blue collar field, even if you live a mile from your house. I mean, it's insane the amount of things that we still need to do to improve, to fix, to create, to repair, maintain, whatever. This whole thing we call our world, right? And the great part about that is, as more people shift towards these, white collar paths, which churches, which schools and guidance counselors and colleges are really good at pushing. It creates an opportunity for those who are contrarian thinkers to maybe think, yeah, I'm going to go back into the good old fashioned blue collar world and make the killing that's currently happening out there.
They are killing it. And the construction industry has been really healthy here for a little bit. And I've just seen my clients thrive, and it's been pretty interesting. I read this statistic in 1970, and you can correct the statistic or kind of elaborate on it if you want, but I'm interested.
Sure.
And preparing for this, I was looking, it was like 1970, blue collar jobs accounted for a third, right? Roughly a third of non-farm employment in the United States. And by 2000, I have stats up to 2016. You can update me on now. It had declined to like 13%. So it went from like 31% to 13% of those jobs being accounted for in the world. So I don't know. If you want to update that, that's cool. But my thought is, whatever the number is, what does that mean?
Well, I think first off, one of the things that drove that statistic was they, because of the stigma of blue collar jobs, a lot of jobs that were blue collar all of a sudden weren't anymore. So they kind
relabeled them, you're saying?
Yeah, they kind of relabeled a lot of those jobs. I mean, you could have a job that, believe it or not, being a pilot is a blue collar job for an airline. I mean, you didn't need a degree to be a pilot. Okay, being flying in an F-16, which I've done. I just did it about a month ago. I flew in the backseat of an F-16. That's a blue collar job, but those things are kind of, the label changes to there's some type of more professional job. And so what happened in a lot of those cases, Scott, is they just kind of relabeled some of the things that they were doing.
Okay.
Because,
okay.
Road builders didn't go away, and bridge builders didn't go away, and people that fixed streetlights didn't go away, and plumbers and electricians and carpenters, none of that has gone away. And what's interesting is the inflow of those positions is what's really concerning. So for the research for the book, for every 10 electricians, that are retiring today, and their average age is 53. Okay, so for every 10 that are retiring, only 5 are coming online. So what does that tell you about the law of supply and demand, right? I mean, Econ 101 in 10th grade says where supply is high and demand is low. Where supply is low and demand is high. That's where the money goes, right? And that's kind of what you're seeing now. You're seeing a whole sector of the construction industry that's begging for people, that's looking for people, and it's causing things. It's causing prices to become higher. An outlet is now, $500. It used to be $150, and you got to wait 6 months for it. So again, I think, when it comes to the stigma of that, what is amazing to me is when the editors were deciding on the final finish of the book, and when my publisher came to me and made me the offer to do it, they were like, I can't believe this. I started walking around my neighborhood, and all my rich friends are all, blue collar entrepreneurs. They're all like big contractors, and yet they don't talk about it. And I said, well, that's because nobody asks them about it. So, everything else is so publicized. If you're a lawyer, if you're a surgeon, if you're a doctor, if you're an engineer or whatever, those white collar jobs are a lot more talked about, a lot more sought after, a lot more prestigious. But when you talk about the earning potential of a blue collar person, it's a little known secret that people are killing it right now. And it's just because nobody ever asked them the question.
Why not?
Well, it's just, I think it's just much more interesting for academic types to talk to other academic types. I think it's just that simple. People that are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, they just go about living their lives in quiet fashion, and they're not really the subject of too many interviews. So yeah, they just, it's funny because people said, oh my God, I never knew that you could make so much money doing these types of things. And I said, that's because nobody ever asked us, right? And it's just, they're busy talking about all that academia and all the things that drives, like consulting and those types of more white collar careers. And we're just sitting here quietly making our money, doing our thing, and loving life in the process.
So let's shift a little bit to culture and building culture. And you've done this in the industry in which you've grown in and built a career in, and now you're helping other people do that. And you wrote the book Blue Collar Cash, with that industry in mind, but also other industries. It's not. I would assume it's not just for blue collar workers, right? I mean, give us the premise of the book real quick, and then I want to ask you a follow up to that.
Well, you've heard all these weird terms coming out all of a sudden, like quiet quitting, and all these terms where, what do those things even mean? I'm going to go to work, and I'm not really going to work hard. I'm just going to show up, and like medium Mondays, and all these weird terms that are coming out of, these consultants. And I think to myself, where did all this stuff come from, right? If somebody can get away with being mediocre in your organization, that's not necessarily the fault of the individual as much as it is the culture of the organization that allow that to happen, right? So when I hear about all these big corporations, these multi-state huge employers that are having these problems, I'm thinking, well, who's watching the store here, right? So culture is something that, again, I started in 1986 with 6 people. We were ditch diggers, and we still do that to this day. We have like 200 people now, and we've had to work on culture the entire time because of the very nature of the job that we do. So we don't understand people that aren't thinking about or working on their culture, because it's such an important part of trying to create momentum within your company and growth and that kind of thing. So I decided that, since Blue Collar Cash was kind of the end user book, how do I design my life? How do I fit into any one of these types of collars and make a great life doing it? People have been asking me for the last few years, can you write one from the ownership perspective or the boss or the manager's perspective on how to attract these people and keep them around? Because, for a long time, it was a market where the employee had all the stroke. He or she could walk into a building and say, hey man, what's in it for me to work here? Which is glaringly different than it used to be. So you still need to be able to answer that question to this very day, because again, there's still people sitting on the sidelines not working and whatnot. So I think culture is something that's ultra important, and that's what the next book's about.
That's awesome. My follow-up question was about that, is about the recruitment, about the culture, because I am hearing, and again, I don't work in the industry except for the clients that I serve that are in that industry. So I hear it's really hard to find good people. It's really hard to find good people right now in this industry. And is that because there are less people coming into that field because they are choosing the more quote unquote other color jobs, or what is accounting for that lack of finding good people?
Well, everyone has so much to compare their jobs by. I mean, if you go from the highway, the expressway exit to my building, you're going to pass 20 help wanted signs. So there's so much competition. There's a lot of comparison. It's almost like when you go on social media and try to compare yourself to what you see out there. It's like, oh my God. I mean, it's just crazy. So yeah, when I think of the culture, when someone says to me, it's hard to find good people, the first thing I ask them is, well, what do you mean by good people? And then they start throwing off these characteristics. People that want to stay, people that are loyal, people that are goal-oriented, people that want to build a life for themselves within my company, people that want to become entrepreneurial within my company. Well, that's not, I mean, you don't just find good people, you create good people. And normally that's a partnership between you and them, whereas their personal goals are on the table, clear and clear as day for you and everyone to see. And so are the corporate goals. So, you have these guiding principles for what your company wants. The individual has guiding principles for what he or she wants. And it's the intersection of those two that makes a good person. You know what I mean? So, if you can get somebody to look back at you and say, wow, Ken, based on what I see around here and the culture that I'm feeling, I think I can get what I want for myself with and through this company. Bam, now you've got something there. Okay. To just hope that someone becomes good, whatever good definition you have for that. That just doesn't happen anymore. There's way too many options for people. And so if they don't feel like, man, I can really rocket ship myself towards what I want for me, I like to look at it like selfish. I haven't, in fact, there's a title of my next book called The World Needs More Selfish People. I don't mean selfish at the detriment of others. I mean people that are truly working on themselves, that are conscious and aware and acting upon that. So I want people to work for themselves first and this company second. And it's real simple, Scott. These are linear creatures, these things we call companies. You have input from the left, you have work, you have creation, you have product development, you have a service, whatever you're going to build. Then you have a price tag, a deliverable, and then hopefully an accounts receivable, and then profit. Well, as the owner, you're always on the profit end of that side. You're always last in line. So why wouldn't you want everybody to win first before you get there? Because if they're all winning within your organization, you can't help but win overall.
What do you consider when you're thinking about building a healthy culture? So we're trying to retain the right people. We're trying to recruit the right people first. We find quote unquote good people. We bring them on board. Now we need to retain those people. The other stigma is people just aren't loyal anymore. Right? So what do we say about that stigma?
Well, the reason they're not loyal is because they're looking for something. They're looking to be in control. And that's why I say you have to create an atmosphere of control where someone can say, I control my input, and therefore I control the quality of that input and the quality of the output from that. I control my day, my time, my schedule. I can control my financial gain. That's what they're really looking for. They're looking for something that they can thrive in. And normally thriving means they are in control of the future development of their perceived nirvana. I call it their comfort, peace, and freedom in the book. So if someone can see the pathway, when you build a puzzle, Scott, you lay all the pieces down on the table. But the most important tool that you have in building a puzzle is the puzzle box, right? You look at that box a million times as you're trying to figure out where to put these pieces. Employers don't develop the puzzle box for their employees. They just hope that they find the way to put the puzzle together. Okay, and on their own, and they accidentally find pieces that connect. I'm saying start with the end in mind. See what that puzzle box, i.e. your life, what you want it to look like, and then have the employer-employee relationship work such that they can put those pieces together at the same time. Because again, if people are winning within your organization, it's almost like if you get enough of this momentum going where people are chasing what they want for themselves within your company, get out of the way because your company's going to go to levels that you've never even imagined before.
Where have you seen this? I don't know. I'm sure you've seen examples where this didn't go so well or examples where it did. Do you have an example you can share of either one where it really told the story of why this is a big deal?
Well, the examples, look at it this way. So you can go to any restaurant this weekend and you're going to get either great service or terrible service, right? And you're going to be, disappointed because you're spending your money and the service just sucks. And you're like, man, I can't believe I took my wife out to here or there or whatever. And now we're getting this service. And on the way home, you're going to drive by a Chick-fil-A and you're going to go, oh my God, there are people standing in the rain and the cold in clear plastic phone booths that they can walk around with taking orders. And the line is down the street to get their chicken nuggets, right? Well, they're doing it right. Somehow they're getting people to do impossible things like standing out in the cold because there's so much demand to take orders for the drive-thru. So when someone says, I can't find good people, I usually say, you're right, you can't, but somebody is. So you just have to change the way you look at it. And in my mind, they care about the people. They care about the character of the person. They care about growing them. Why do they say my pleasure over and over and over again? Because someone took the time to train them properly. So what I'm saying is the companies that fail are the ones that don't provide a clear path to the individual's own perceived success, their own puzzle box, their own design for their own life. Those are the people. Those are the companies that just spin through people over and over and over, at an average cost of $2,400 to $4,000 per person, by the way, to retire and replace somebody. And they spin their wheels, and those are the people that give you those grief stories. What I'm saying is, get out of the way, allow your people to become entrepreneurial thinking in not only their own lives, but within your organization, and just watch what happens. It's a whole completely different way to run your company.
So what else? What else are companies missing that is that causes them not to fire on all cylinders, right? Like they're limping along. They're complaining about I can't find good people or nobody's loyal anymore. And they're trying to build their culture so that they retain and keep the right people and develop the right people. And these people stay with them forever. And then they build a thriving company. I mean, you've built your company up to 200 people. That's some growth, man. And so what do you attribute that to? What are other people missing?
So you drive down the street now and you see the Taco Bell says we're paying $7.50 an hour, and the McDonald's says we'll pay you $18.50 an hour, and the other place says we'll pay you $19.50. They're trying to solve this problem with money. Money isn't all of it, okay? I want to be welcomed. I want to have a colorful place to work. I want to have an energetic place to work. I want to have a place that celebrates everything: my birthday, my anniversary, my next milestone growth within the company, my results of my work. I'm in control of the amount of money that I make. I might make 60% of my money in salary, but the other 40 is in some type of bonus or incentive program. There's music, okay, around. There's things that aren't normal, like, wow, these people actually have a chef that comes in and cooks lunch for everybody once a week. Well, yeah, Ken, that's really expensive. No, it's not, because the culture that you create will create the results that will allow you to afford to do that. So sharing profits with people. I did this thing that it was life-changing for me. About 12 years ago, I took all my entrepreneurial candidates into a conference room and I said, I want you all to write down on a piece of paper how far you think this company can go revenue-wise next year. And if we get there, I'm going to share a part of that with you. Wouldn't you know it, Scott, that every one of those numbers was $2 million higher than my own number. So be very careful that you are not your own self-limiter when it comes to these things. Drop the ego that you own this place or you run this place or you're the boss of this place, and start building entrepreneurial people around you. I didn't even want to show them my number, Scott. I didn't. I took the number, put it back in my pocket. I didn't even put it out there for them. I was like, yeah, that's good. Let's do this. And then they're like, wait a minute. So what you're saying is this revenue increase will allow us to get a piece of that? Yeah, absolutely. And all right, get out of our way. Let's rock and roll. And now all these ideas came out that I hadn't heard before, and all these procedures and all these money-saving ideas and sales increasing ideas came out. So yeah, there's people around you that have brains. You just got to allow them to use them.
And allow them to feel invested. And part of it, I think that a lot of companies miss out on that opportunity too. And rightly so. There's some things that we don't need to be over communicative about, certain issues, certain things that stop at leadership that, they carry the brunt of that news.
Sure.
That don't need to be passed on. But other things, helping people feel involved and included and like they're being communicated with and invested in the thing. Like that was investment, man. Like that mentality shift was like, hold on. Oh, I can make this thing happen. Like yeah. I'm in control of making this thing happen. That's that control word again.
Well, not only that, but there also has to be, this is the one that's a little more theoretical, but it still works. When we started, we were, these guys they're riding jackhammers all day long, breaking up concrete floors and hauling gravel. And I mean, it's crazy. We're up to our knees in mud. And not only are they focused on what they want out of that, that F-150 pickup truck, or I want to go to Scotland to play golf, or I want to start building my house, or I'm going to put a new deck in the back, or build a swimming pool. Not only are they focused on what they want to do for themselves, but they're also focused on what really your core mission is. And you could say, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I waterproof basements. Okay. Well, no, you're actually creating increased square footage for a family that can now use that. And also you're increasing the health of that home by bunches. Like, we've had kids get off of breathing machines, off of asthma treatments, because we're removing mold and removing, contaminants from the house. People can walk downstairs, they can turn into a football game room, or a craft room, or a workout room, whatever. So they're focused on what it is I really do here. I wonder how many people in companies know what the point of their company is. They know the mechanics of it, but what's the point of the overall thing? Because if they knew that, that's where the intersection of the core value of the company and the core value of the individual exposed and promoted and motivated and shared, that's where those things intersect. And if you want to create momentum, man, you find 100 people within a building all chasing something really, really serious for themselves, working within the framework of your company. That's the very definition of momentum.
And I think you're involving a little bit of story into what you're doing too, because if I think of my job as going out swinging the hammer, or digging a hole, or whatever it is, or I think of my job as I just sit on that assembly line and I put arms on dolls all day, and that's kind of the way you think of your job, you probably aren't going to be there very long. Right. And I think it's up to the culture and the leadership to help instill a story into what we're doing. And the story comes in the impact of what that thing does. Like, what is the impact of putting the arm on that doll? Well, it's that smiling face of that kid that gets that doll one day. And like, if they were able to take part in that vision of that ability to create something for a family, for a person, for a company, for a whatever, like, I think people would feel more invested. I just think people are too far away from that.
If I was giving advice to the guy putting arms on dolls, I would say either get a 30-foot by 30-foot video screen of kids receiving these dolls, whether it's in a hospital or it's where they buy it under the Christmas tree or whatever, and the look on their faces as they're getting these dolls. I'd be piping that right into the factory, or I'd be marching families through that factory constantly, thanking people for this little doll and the little girls there holding it. I mean, that's the whole point, is what I'm saying. When we're out there fixing a wet, sloppy, dirty, smelly old rotten basement, we talk to the families as to why they're doing this. And we get all these cool reasons. Oh, my husband wants to build an Ohio State football room down there, or I want to build a gym for my kids because they want to play sports, or my husband's a carpenter, or I want a clean place to do the laundry. I want to find a way to escape my kids so I can start a book library, that I can have a book club with my girlfriends. We get involved in those things, and that, to me, you're correct. That, to me, is the ultimate story of what's the purpose. Because if you can align your own self-purpose, the puzzle box, with the purpose of the company, boom, that's the energy that you need.
I love it, man. What a formula. Okay, so Blue Collar Cash, it's out. People can get their hands on it. But you also have a course that you've developed with the book.
Yeah, so I've been on a lot of podcasts. I've been on probably 300 of them. And there's a lot of times where I'll see behind the host, there'll be books all over the wall, well-read people. And it's funny because sometimes I'll ask them off camera, well, pick a book there and tell me what you got out of it. And they'll say, oh, yeah, I got this book, really good book, awesome. And then I'll ask them, well, what did you use? Like, is there something specifically you used from that book? And sometimes that's where the story ends, which I never wanted that to happen. I never wanted mine to be one of those books that was just on the shelf collecting dust, even though they read it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put a course out there. It's a real simple course. It's 8 sessions. They're 45 minutes a session. It's all online, and it coincides with the book. references the book. So you don't even have to read the whole book. You can just reference it. But this thing's $179. It's not one of those $2,000 courses that is so theoretical you don't know how to apply it. This is hands-on plug-and-play stuff that you can use this afternoon to change your life. And I guarantee it. I mean, when you do this, you will be moved. Your life will be different from the minute you finish this course. And I offer it on my website at kenrusk.com. And the good news is I donate that money to charity anyway. So if you're fortunate enough to help yourself, know that you're going to help somebody else who can't maybe afford it as well. So I encourage people to go to kenrusk.com and you can see the book and the course there.
That's cool. What am I going to learn in the course? Like, why would I take that?
Well, first off, you're going to learn how to settle your mind and clear all the garbage that you have that's preventing you from taking a step forward. You're going to lose some words. You will not be able to use the word hope, dream, wish, or goal anymore. That will be removed from your vocabulary. And it'll be replaced with timed pathways. Okay? There's a timed pathway to everything. And if you're going to achieve it, there must be a timed pathway or it never, ever happens. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be dreamy and hopey and wishy, but if you're going to make something happen, you've got to put it on a pathway. And so we teach you how to use timed pathways to bring almost anything you want into your life in a for sure way. Everything that you had that was an if goal is now going to be a when goal, which is completely different than one to the other. So you're going to learn how to draw a little bit about your future. You're going to learn to think about life in its totality. You're going to learn to build your puzzle box cover. And you'll walk away with it going, oh, okay, so I am in control of my life. It's not what everyone else or society expects of me. It's what I want to do. And that's kind of the whole point of the thing.
That's awesome. I love that this word control keeps going. I keep using that a lot too in some of my coaching with my clients and talking with them. And they're wondering about anxiety from themselves or their own lives or their kids or their employees or their team members or whatever. And it all comes back to this idea of control and like us feeling out of control with certain things, whether it's our life or a project or whatever. And the more in control we can feel, whether it's giving language to something in particular or a reasoning why or a guide or a map or something.
Isn't it wild, Scott, that for an entrepreneur, the more control he or she gives up, the more control they get, it's bizarre. I mean, you can work 70 hours a week and come home and beat your chest and say, oh, honey, I did this and I fixed that and I yelled at these people and I created that and I motivated these people and I changed that. And you forgot your kid's first name. You don't know what sport they play in. You know, their birthdays are when. You have high blood pressure, diabetes, but you're making money. So that's cool, right? Wrong. I mean, the best entrepreneur in the world is the one that becomes irrelevant to his company in the day-to-day. And that's a hard pill to swallow for people. But if they only learn that giving up control is the ultimate control, they would live much happier lives running their companies. That's for sure.
That's big. That's a big idea. Love it, man. So kenrusk.com. People can go there. They can get a hold of you. They can get a hold of the book. They can get a hold of anything else. Anything else you want to drop there?
No, I just, again, I'm a big believer in charity. I do give a lot back. I started my own foundation called the Comfort, Peace, and Freedom Foundation after the book. And in that particular endeavor, we help sons and daughters of the fallen and first responders and whatnot. We give them free courses. So that's at veteransuccess.org. And it just, for me, if you're willing to walk into a fire or walk into a domestic abuse, with your gun in your hand or dodge bullets in Afghanistan, you should have all the trappings that life can give you from the rest of us. That's just my opinion. And so I'm just trying to do my little part in helping people figure out what they want their life to look like after that kind of thing.
Amen, man. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate you. Appreciate your words, your thoughts, your ideas. All that stuff has been really valuable for me. I learn something for every time I'm on with you people. That's what the most selfish thing I get to do is this podcast, and it's pretty awesome. So thanks for being on, man.
While you're working on self, that's good.
I love this whole idea that he had about a culture that attracts the right people, developing the right people, but it starts with recruiting the right people and then retaining the right people through that development. And the, what was it that he said? Like, oh, what are good people? Like the whole good people idea, I thought was really interesting to think about. Yeah, we just can't find good people these days. We just can't find good people. What an interesting idea of not finding good people, but how do you create good people? If they're willing to be created, right? So you have to have somebody who's willing on the other side. But I think maybe that is something that we can shift our little mindset to is, are we looking for that instantly? Are we willing to develop that? Are we willing to invest in that? Because I will tell you right now, the younger generations, that's what they're looking for. They are looking for development and mentorship and coaching throughout their career. And if you're not willing to give that, if you expect them to just be on it or not want to spend a lot of time with them in developing them, you just expect them to do it on their own, you're not going to retain the right people. And that is something I think we all need to think about. Start with the puzzle box. Are you thinking about the puzzle box? Are you using vision to help people embrace the puzzle box, to think that that is possible? I can be that. I can do that. When you wrote out the whole thing of like, what do you think we can achieve revenue wise? That's an interesting exercise. How many of you are willing to do that? How many of you are willing to say, hey, everybody, what's your goal? And I will split this up with you. I don't know. It's an interesting challenge, something to think about. Or is there a way for you to think about some other way to implement that? Give people ownership, give people that autonomy to shape and do and brainstorm and break and mold the thing. I'm sure they want to be successful. And that, I guess the last thing is what he said, is letting go of that control, letting other people be in control. You will be more successful. Creating that culture delivers the results that enable you to keep building the culture that you want. Thanks, Ken, for being here. Thanks for your big heart. Thanks for all the things you're doing. Appreciate it. If you want to find out more information about me or check out the show notes where there's going to be more information and links to the things referenced in this episode, visit skotwaldron.com. And lastly, I'm asking for a little bit of love, just a little bit. So please take a moment, follow, rate the show. The algorithms like that. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, stay unlocked.